nationally, we are able to adopt and adapt it to the situation of South Africa and measure poverty in the nation. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you. The other question is, can you please comment on the gender balance of the results, especially for the girl child? How are girls doing relative to boys?
Okay. In this particular study, the findings were they were both just 60 plus percentage, both girls and boys, meaning poverty, when looking at MODA on multidimensional terms, there is no significant difference. It shows that poverty, multidimensional poverty, using MODA, it's sort of showing a girl child and a boy child being affected by poverty sort of in the same way. But when you look at other measures, like our absolute measure of poverty, when looking at the poverty lines, you'll find that the female household heads in South Africa, they are more likely to be in poverty than the male household the male headed households. So with this particular study, the multidimensional poverty is affecting a boy child and a girl child in the same way as we look at the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Just a few comments and questions from my side. So the MODA measuring tool, is that now going to enable us to do almost international comparisons? Also then touching on that, are we yet able to use international comparisons with the data that is currently available from Stats SA? I'm just seeing whether we are measuring the same things as our neighboring countries, perhaps. That's number one. Then the data set that you've used is coming from 2014 and 15. And you've indicated that by the end of the year, there might be another data set available that is with more recent figures. So, so the current data excludes our current unemployment crisis. It excludes the effects of COVID-19. So would you agree with me that this number, looking at the objective data that you gathered before all of this, that the number, the 62.1% multidimensionally poor households will have exponentially increased? And then the last one, the second to last, sorry. In terms of the gathering of the data, how is this gathered? In Are children participating directly in the gathering of this data, or is it through other means? Sorry, you have to excuse my ignorance on this. And then the last one is just, do you perhaps have a data set available on what social assistance, specifically the child support grants, are being used for? When you've conducted your studies and you've gathered your information, whether there might have been an element or an area where one could identify what the CSG, for instance, is most likely being used for. I was just wondering whether that's something that is in your wheelhouse or that you will be able to extract from the broader data set that you currently have available. So those are my comments and questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. With regards to international comparisons, I do have Russell. He was the key contact person when we were still doing the analysis and the report writing and the dissemination of this work. And he is also the one who made sure that Stats SA is on board presenting the results. So if ever he wants to add on, I'll allow him to do so. But with regards to international comparisons, what we know is that actually South Africa were lagging behind with regards to this MODA methodology. In the SADC region, we have MODA Zim Moda. We do have Moda Lesotho. We have Moda Swaziland. Like the SADC region, most of the countries, they have done this, that they have used this methodology to publish the Moda for their specific countries. So on international terms, that's where we are, international comparisons. And then, yes, unemployment plays a key role in poverty, in analyzing poverty situation for children in South Africa. As I had indicated in the beginning, I said for the findings, they are limited. In the MODA, we also have an indicator that talks to like analysis, where we analyze children coming from households that there is no one employed versus children that are coming from households where one or more adults are employed. And we have seen that high child poverty rates are among children that have adults with no one employed. So that it has been factored in the MODA analysis, and that can be made available. We have a full presentation that covers all the socio-economic and household characteristics of these children, where these children are coming from, and it can be shared. And then with regards to COVID-19, the one survey that we say it's current, it will only be starting to go into field in November. So now we are busy with the preparations. So it will only go in the field in November, and the results will be available 23-24, because we have to allow the period of 12 months for data collection and so forth, processing, and then data ready for analysis and dissemination. Indeed, there are data items that are included for this current survey that talks to COVID-19. And then, of course, with regards to 62.1% poverty rate that we see, we are expecting it to be higher as the nation is still, we are not out of COVID, and the repercussions or the consequences of COVID have not left us. People are still suffering. The people of South Africa are still suffering as a result of the pandemic that has hit the global. So we're anticipating the rate to be higher, a bit higher than 62.1%. So when we go to the houses, households, when we gather information, with regard to children, we get the information based on children from the caregiver. So like we have questions on a road to health card that we will ask the primary caregiver of the child. Questions will be directed to the primary health caregiver. But in terms of maybe where the child needs to be measured and all that, it is done specifically on a child. So we prepare our households. So if maybe I'm coming for an interview, there's sort of a preparation for the house to make sure that in my next visit, they have prepared, the child is there, it's available, so that I will be able to take measurements that have to be on a child. So that we do on a child, but any other road to health child and so forth, we go to the caregiver. So the living conditions survey that we have, it captures what we call sources of income, and we do cover a whole lot. We ask a whole lot of our social grants, all the types that we have according to the DSD SASSA. So what can be produced from there is how many children are receiving a child support grant, but in the MODA analysis, we have not factored that in in terms of deprivation or not. It's not factored because it's sort of money metric. We are capturing it in the money metric, in the poverty lines, absolute measure of poverty. So I'm not sure, ma'am, if I've covered it all, but that's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. Just to clarify that last, or the second to last one. So, the questions in terms of hunger, I know the motor model indicates that, or the dimensions at least, ask whether you have been experiencing this in a certain portion of time period, whether, the child has been hungry or missed a meal or that type of thing. So those questions, in fact, are not posed to the children. It's the primary caregiver who would inform those answers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That actually, the question itself, it's at household level. It's not at an individual level. So we are talking if the household have experienced, like all the members have experienced, they ran out of money to buy food. They've skipped meals. Household meaning all the members inclusive, but it's at a household level. Yes, thank you.
So would you then agree with me that that number might be even higher if we look at were children able to respond themselves?
Yes, I expect that number to be higher because remember we had indicated that the children are the most vulnerable, and then you find that those questions will affect them more than any other maybe adult than them. Yes, I do agree.
Also, just, to make more of a comment rather, if I was a caregiver and I'm not able to provide for my family, there might also be a resistance in revealing that information readily, because it's such a sensitive topic, so that the integrity of the data at the end of the day might also be affected, because it's a sensitive topic when one cannot provide to the basic needs of your children. So I would actually want to engage